packed show, so hopefully really excited guests as well, and we'll talk to them very, very shortly. But first, I want to start tonight by condemning the assassination attempt on Pakistan's former Prime Minister Imran Khan in Wazirabad last week. This was a despicable attack on democracy and should have been the moment when the whole of Pakistan came together to condemn this attack and ensure the culprits are brought to justice. But that is not what happened. His political opponents have suggested either he staged the attack or he wasn't really injured. The fake news peddled not by those on the margins of the dark web, but senior members of political parties and those in government in Pakistan. These are difficult times for the country, and we do not know what the coming days will bring. But one thing is certain, the people of Pakistan want their opportunity to have their democratic say so the country can be brought back on the road to recovery. Now is the time for the unity, regardless of your political bias. Democracy and freedom is worth raising your voice for. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protects Pakistan and its people. Now, we want you to comment on the big stories we're covering tonight. Call us now on 01924 231 083. Messages on the WhatsApp number, which is on the screen now. And if you're watching this on Facebook Live, post your comments on the in the chat box, should I say, and we'll read some of them on air later. Tonight, first, we head to Bradford, just up the road from here in Wakefield, to talk to the Executive Director of Race Equality Network, Humma Nizami, about tackling Islamophobia and racism in communities and the work she's doing to combat it. We then head to Orlando in Florida, United States, to talk to Nadia Ahmad about the midterm elections that happened yesterday in the United States. That red wave didn't happen. We'll get the latest to see what is happening in the United States, where it looks like the House of Representatives is going to go to the Republicans and the Senate is neck and neck, and the Democrats might hold on. We'll hear the latest results and what is the impact on American politics as the countdown to the 2024 presidential election begins. We then finish off in Peterborough and talk to business entrepreneur Hamza Malik about his life story and the impact he's making in the world of business. So we want to hear from you tonight. You can call us on 01924 231 083 or message us on British Muslim TV across social media. Alternatively, you can send us a WhatsApp message. The number is on the screen now. The questions, because that's what we do here. We ask questions. The questions I'm asking you tonight are, as Islamophobia Awareness Month is in full swing, how can we defeat the evil of Islamophobia? What do you make of Joe Biden's 2-year as US president? And do you think Donald Trump will win and be back in the White House? And how can Muslims contribute to business and be ambassadors for Islam? Please share your thoughts on 01924 231 083. You can message us on WhatsApp or post on social media. We'll read some of your comments throughout the program. Right, let's get started on the program. Now, November is Islamophobia Awareness Month. It's an opportunity to celebrate Muslim contribution to the United Kingdom, expose the evil of Islamophobia that sadly still exists in so many parts of our country, and look at solutions to bring communities together. In 2022, the battle against racism is still as relevant as it is when our forefathers came here in the 50s and the 60s. Now, the Race Equality Network in Bradford is an exceptional community organisation working to bring communities together and eradicate racism. They amplify the voice of ethnic minority communities on partnership and decision-making at all levels, so their voice is heard at every level of government. The organisation's executive director is Humma Nizami. She's a qualified youth and community development worker. She has had over 15 years experience working in the volunteering community sector. Pleased to say Humma is joining us live from Bradford. Humma, assalamu alaikum, a very warm welcome to the programme. Great to finally have this conversation.
Walaikum assalam, Mohammed, and thank you so much for inviting me onto your show.
Now, a little birdie tells me His Majesty the King, King Charles, and his wife, the Queen Consort, were in Bradford yesterday, and you got a chance to meet him. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, there were. So King Charles III came to Bradford yesterday, so I was invited to City Hall for the welcome reception, and we were joined by the King and the leaders, young leaders of the district, to really talk about and highlight the work that they're doing in their own field, whether that was media, sport, or business. And it was a real opportunity to put Bradford on the map again. and really showcase the fantastic work that's happening across the district. So it was a real privilege to be amongst the very few people that were there yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. Tremendous privilege for you. I like to get to know my guests. And I suppose the first question is, let's talk about your upbringing. Tell us a bit about your upbringing and your sort of childhood and your early years.
Yeah. So I grew up in Bradford, which is a city of sanctuary and a home to people from many backgrounds, cultures and faiths. And I feel blessed to have had a happy childhood with very supportive parents. And it wasn't until my adult life that I experienced both professional and personal hardships, which I don't really want to dwell into. But as a Muslim woman, I faced multiple challenges later on in life, especially around discrimination and inequality. And I think these challenges really spurred me to strive for a better, more inclusive world. So I've always been passionate about elevating those around me and creating opportunities for them to achieve their goals.
Because when I think about when I was researching you and learning about your work, the thing that stood out is some people want to have a career in business or politics or whatever else, but very little people have an interest in community in the voluntary sector. Where did your interest come in?
So I think due to the challenges that I faced personally and professionally, I was working in the financial sector actually, and I just wanted to give something back to my community. So I started volunteering at a local women's charity, supporting women and girls from South Asian backgrounds to develop their confidence, self-esteem and their skills through engaging in lots of different activities. And as a result of that, I really enjoyed the work that I was doing, giving something back to the community and really seeing the end results of really supporting women to develop further in their skills. So I went back to university and I studied youth and community development. And I haven't looked back since. Yeah.
The Race Equality Network is an exceptional organisation because lots of people I was talking to in Bradford, my mum's side of the family come from there, my wife's side of the family from there. So I spend a lot of time there. And it's held in high regards. For those who don't know about the network, tell us about the work that you do.
So Race Equality Network is an organisation that was established in September 2000 following the closure of the Race Equality Council in Bradford. So it was set up as a consortium of ethnic minority organisations to really support the fragmented voluntary sector in Bradford at the time. So in 2019, we rebranded as the Race Equality Network. And we're an infrastructure organisation with a membership of over 45 grassroots organisations that we support, and they deliver a range of services to ethnic minority communities in Bradford. So at the organisation, we champion race equality at a grassroots and strategic level and work collaboratively with key stakeholders to ensure that equality, inclusion and equity is at the forefront of service delivery within the voluntary and public sector. So we promote the fostering of good community relations. We amplify the voice of underrepresented and unheard ethnic minority communities to influence real change and campaign against racism, xenophobia, anti-Semitism, discrimination, Islamophobia and hate crime. And we also celebrate the diverse cultural communities that live in Bradford because it's a diverse city and people from all walks and backgrounds, walks of life and backgrounds live and work here. So we really want to champion the diversity in the district.
And as we look back at the struggle against racism, it's been going on for decades. How do you assess progress?
Yeah, so in recent years, racism has just been heightened due to the national and international challenges such as a divisive Brexit period, the Black Lives Matter movement and the COVID-19 pandemic. And it's really important to acknowledge where racism comes from and the different forms of it. And I think Bradford is a truly diverse district, be that geographically, politically or culturally. And diversity is what makes us collectively stronger. However, sadly, it also provides an environment for prejudice, racism and hatred. We thrive, which thrives individuals really to be targeted solely because of their own differences. And I think to eradicate racism fully, we need to get rid of the stereotypes and misconceptions that exist around us. And this means having more diverse leadership and better representation at a board level down. So currently at REN, where we champion race equality through the Root Out Racism movement, which was developed in partnership with the West Yorkshire Health and Care Partnership to ensure structural racism and inequalities are tackled at all levels, whether that's health inequalities, routes to education and employment. So I sit on various boards to amplify the voices of the diverse communities that live and work here, to ensure that organisations really look deep down into their internal structures and services to become more inclusive and diverse. So through the work that I deliver in the voluntary sector, I'd like to think that we've made some progress as a community, but we still have a long way to go.
Yeah, a really long way to go. We've got less than a minute before our break, and I just want to ask you one question. It's often said by the policymakers and the politicians that Bradford has a fragmented voluntary sector. What are you doing to change this, and what's your engagement around that?
So at REN, we're playing a small but very important role in a much larger movement to unite Black and minoritized grassroots organisations under one umbrella and under one banner in an attempt to bring cultures together and bridge divides. So we see our roles as a facilitator for our organisations to gain access and support so they are able to thrive in their endeavours and really support ethnic minority communities, whether that be in education or training. So how we do that is by working in collaboration with key stakeholders, whether that's in the voluntary sector or the public sector, to bring diverse communities together, to really better understand one another and face the challenges that the district faces at the moment. And, you know, what my future vision for REN is that we share the same goals.
Okay. Sorry, Humma, we're just going to have to take a quick break. Apologies for interrupting there, but we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll carry on the important conversation with Humma. Join us on the other side of these very important yet short messages. Assalamu alaikum.
असांजे मींहं वसिया ॾाढा असांखे ॾाढो परेशान थियासीं असांजे ॿोॾ अची वई घर खां बेघर थी वियासीं असांजूं जायूं किरी पियूं कुझु न रहियो असांजो सखणा सिर वठी असां निकिता आहियूं उतां बच्चा असांजा मज़ूरी कंदा आहिनि त खाईंदा आहियूं जे न कंदा आहिनि त असां कॾहिं चुल्हो बि न ॿारींदा आहियूं असां सां इहे मजबूरियूं आहिनि पोइ हिते वेठा आहियूं अची खीमा ॾिना अथऊं खीमनि में वेठा आहियूं असांखे अटो मिलियो खाइण जो सॼो ई राशन मिलियो जेको असां खाईंदासीं जंहिंमें हर शइ मौजूदु आहे उन में थांव बि किचन जा सजाई असांखे ॾिना अथऊं असांजे भाइरनि जी महिरबानी आहे उन में बाल्टियूं आहिनि बदना आहिनि अलाह उन्हनि भाइरनि खे अञा गंज ॾींदो असांजी ईअं मदद कंदा
رسول الله إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستهديه رسول الله حبيب الله.
What does it mean to follow the Prophet, peace be upon him?
رسول الله رسول الله.
Be content with that which you have been given. You will be the richest of people.
رسول الله.
Find your perfect match. Join 3 million members worldwide. Download the singlemuslim.com app for free now.
We're back. I told you it was going to be a very short break. You're watching Questions with me, Mohammed, Shafiq, exclusively here on British Muslim TV. We're coming to you live from our studios here in Wakefield. We are taking little calls as well, so if you want to get in touch, ask a question of Humma, you can do so on 01924 231 083, but also on social media as well. As I said, we're having an exclusive conversation with Humma Nizami from the Race Equality Network in Bradford. Now, Humma, November is Islamophobia Awareness Month. What sort of activities is REN involved in during this month?
Yeah, sadly, over the years, people have become much more bolder in their racism and their Islamophobia. And Islamophobia isn't something that can be tackled overnight through one training course. So because it's so deep-rooted over many years, it needs to be tackled individually. Everyone has a responsibility to reject Islamophobia, which starts from positive forward-thinking conversations. So Race Equality Network are supporting Islamophobia Awareness Month by working in partnership with Bradford Council and Bradford Hate Crime Alliance to tackle the denial and stereotypes by raising awareness of the diversity of Muslims in the district. Because there's so many different types of Muslims, you know, we all don't look the same. We may choose to cover, some of us may not, some of us are black, some of us are white, and some of us are brown. So in order to tackle Islamophobia, we need to better educate and have more representation, because it affects us all differently.
It does.
So,
I would just make it a point where,
yeah.
you know, I'm in my early 40s, so you know, kind of lived through sort of 9/11, and I suppose 9/11 was the moment when people started to see you as Muslim rather than being Asian or Pakistani or whatever. The race element is still there.
Yeah.
Do you sense that as well? So since 9/11 and the aftermath of the war on terror, that was the moment where people started seeing you in a different lens, and that's where Islamophobia was perpetuated and spread.
Yeah, Mohammed, I did. You know, I had personal experiences. You know, but during 9/11, I was on annual leave for my brother's wedding. When I came back to work, I used to work in a bank, and I just saw the difference in people's attitude towards me, and you know, from my colleagues. And it was just then when I realised that actually, you know, I am, you know, facing hatred because of my religion, and it wasn't me that, you know, was behind it. But it just didn't occur to me before that. You know, I thought we were all well connected. You know, I had colleagues from different walks of lives. You know, they were my friends. So I think it's definitely been heightened. Islamophobia has definitely been heightened as a result of 9/11, 7/7. And I think, you know, there's so much work to do to eradicate Islamophobia and racism of all forms, really. So for us, it's really important that we have them conversations, and we really look at sharing the lived experiences of people, and what it is for them to be a Muslim, rather than focusing on what we see in the media, because, you know, what we see in the media and social media as well really fuels hatred against certain communities that can be ostracized. So on the 24th of November, we're having an online webinar in partnership with the Council and Bradford Hate Crime Alliance to really hear the lived experiences of Muslims across the district, and how they tackle religious hatred. So we work, you know, in partnership with them to really get the lived experiences and stories of people on a ground level. And also on our social media, we'll be, you know, highlighting Islamophobia as well, and the denial, because that is the theme for this year's Islamophobia Awareness Month.
Yeah, I mean, several times tonight you've talked about diverse leadership at all levels, whether that be in the boardroom, whether it be in our politics, whether it be in our Islamic organizations and our mosques. It is rare for there to be such a powerful role model for Muslim women in such an important level that you're at. How can your story and how can you, being visibly in post, inspire other women to also struggle and to achieve their goals?
Oh, thank you for your kind comments. For me, my journey as an executive director of the Race Equality Network hasn't been plain sailing at all. I've faced many challenges and obstacles along the way, and I personally think that to inspire women, we really need to shift the language and the narrative when it comes to Muslim women in professional roles and leadership positions, because we're still fighting stereotypes that are deep-rooted within our culture. You know, for example, as a community, we often tend to focus on the cultural restraints and barriers faced by women, which overshadows the rights that Islam has given women. So alhamdulillah, for me, I'm fortunate enough to know and be supported by a bunch of Muslim women who are at the top of their game right now, and they're thriving, which is, you know, whether that's in the media, whether that's in sports, or business. And only yesterday, I was invited to the welcome reception for King Charles in Bradford. And it was amazing to see, the young leaders of the district, including a table full of women, young Muslim women, including the hijabi boxer, who were sharing their achievements with the king. And it was just so inspirational to see that. And that's something that we might not have seen 15, 20 years ago. So we've moved on leaps and bounds, but I still think that there's a lot more work to be done around that. So I think, and for me, I'm fortunate that I've got a manager who's a Muslim man who really encourages me, and my board are very diverse, so they always push me to take the risks and lead inclusively. So I've got a strong support network who really empower me to achieve the best that I can. So in order to continue inspiring the next generation, I think we must do better at highlighting the amazing work of Muslim women and men. That is happening right now, and there's plenty of that, and there's plenty of examples.
Yeah, I like the way you said "and men." So, like, we're, realizing our new role has been a supportive role. I think that's really important as well, isn't it? That women have careers and are successful in whatever dreams they want to do, and it's a partnership.
Yeah. Yes, it's a partnership, and I think to have a supportive network makes all the difference. Because it's not been an easy ride. The ones that are nearest and dearest to me will know that. But, alhamdulillah, Allah gives me the strength to just challenge that and carry on.
And you're here.
I'm here.
And you're still standing, you're thriving. Alhamdulillah, and you're still, as you say, shining and doing your thing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, that's really, really important. Tell us, when you look at Bradford and you look at strength of diversity, and you made sure within the Race Equality Network that diversity is represented in your structures as well, because that's important, isn't it? That's
really important because, by having our membership of over 45 grassroots organisations, we work with Black African Caribbean communities, the Central Eastern European communities, diverse communities across the districts, and what we do is we amplify their voices at a strategic level, and it's really important that diversity is reflected within service delivery to meet the needs of the diverse communities that live and work here. So I'm fortunate enough that I have a seat at the table where those voices can be heard and represented. And you've got Susan Cunliffe, who's the leader of Bradford Council, a very strong woman. Nashar, Judith Cummins, two MPs, should I say, for a powerful constituency, both in Bradford. Women are doing their thing now. Yeah, they are. Susan and Naz are very supportive of Ren's work. As are other leaders, we from the NHS, from the voluntary sector. We've got a good support network, and I think it's really important when you have that diversity within the leadership across the district. But for me, it's about increasing that representation to ensure that more people from diverse backgrounds have a seat at that table and are able to represent those communities that live and work here. Because for me, representation is very important. I just wanted to ask you about COVID, because really, if you want to see the impact of COVID, you want to go to the graveyard at Schoolmore Cemetery in Bradford. My grandma's buried there, and she died just in the first couple of weeks of the pandemic. And if you go there now, it's absolutely massive, packed, in terms of how many people died since. How did your work carry on during COVID? And what do you make about the overrepresentation, the number of deaths in Bradford from minority communities? Yeah, so for Race Equality Network, we were funded by the council to lead on the COVID prevention project for ethnic minority and Central Eastern European communities in the district. And it was our responsibility to ensure that these communities had up-to-date information, advice and guidance around test and trace, infection control and outbreak management. We launched a helpline in 13 different languages, because not everybody can use a laptop, not everybody can use the internet, and they don't have access to that information. So for me, it was really important to highlight how we can break them barriers and make our services more inclusive. So this, COVID did have a disproportionate impact on ethnic minority communities, and the support that we provided to our communities through the funding that we received was really vital, because it was these grassroots organisations that have got that trust with their communities, and they were really able to support their own communities in making sure that communities were safe. And as a result of our work, we were highlighted in the government's vaccination uptake plan, and across the district we contributed to 73% uptake of the vaccinations.
That was amazing,
amongst ethnic minority communities. So it was brilliant work and very much needed.
Yeah, and I did some videos, some adverts for the NHS during that time as well. So it was a great privilege to be involved in that as well. Sadly, I could listen to you all night, but we've come to the end of the program, and we've come to the end of this segment, should I say? My producer's going to get worried, thinking I'm going to walk away now. But final question: as you reflect on your career and your life, how would you like to be remembered?
Wow, that's a big question.
That's why I ask it at the end.
So I'm passionate about equality, inclusion and equity, as well as celebrating diversity. Therefore, I'd like to be remembered as an equality and inclusion champion, a people's person, a people's champion. And I've been fortunate enough to meet so many amazing individuals who have enriched my life and inspired me. And I hope that through my work and the work that I'm doing for Race Equality Network, I'm able to enrich the life of others as well. So yeah, that's how I would like to be remembered.
Well, thank you so much for answering that, because it really throws people, because we're just so busy in doing the work like you are that you don't get time to reflect. So I hope I've helped you reflect on that. Thank you so much, Humma. It's an absolute privilege to hear your story, and I salute you once again for all the good work that you're doing, and look forward for maybe British Muslim TV to come along and participate in some of the stuff that you're doing. So
inshallah, and thank you so much for having me on your show.
Absolutely loved it. Thank you so much. That was Humma Nizami joining us live, talking about the importance of the struggle against racism and Islamophobia. She was the executive director of the Race Equality Network, and she was joining us from the beautiful city of Bradford. Now, after the break, we're going to head to the United States. We're going to go to Orlando in Florida, and we're going to be talking to Nadia Ahmad about the midterm elections. I'm just about to give you some updates on the results so far, but what we'll do, we'll pause there, we'll take a very quick break, and we'll give you the updates just after the break. What does this mean for the next presidential election in 2024? We'll soon find out. Assalamu alaikum.
Find your perfect match. Join 3 million members worldwide. Download the singlemuslim.com app for free now.
يا طيبة يا طيبة يا دوا العيان اشتقنا لك والهوى نادانا والهوى نادانا لما سار المركب.
अदा असांजे मींहं वसिया ॾाढा, असां ॾाढो परेशान थियासीं। असांजे ॿोॾि अची वई, घर खां बेघर थी वियासीं। असांजूं जायूं किरी पियूं, कुझु न रहियो। असांजो सखणा सिर वठी असां निकिता आहियूं उतां। बच्चा असांजा मज़ूरी कंदा आहिनि त खाईंदा आहियूं, जे न कंदा आहिनि त असां कॾहिं चुल्हो बि न ॿारींदा आहियूं। असां सां इहे मजबूरियूं आहिनि। पोइ हिते वेठा आहियूं, अची खीमा ॾिना अथऊं, खीमनि में वेठा आहियूं। असांखे अटो मिलियो, खाइण जो सॼो ई राशन मिलियो, जेको असां खाईंदासीं, जंहिंमें हर शइ मौजूदु आहे। उन में थांव बि किचन जा सजाई असांखे ॾिना अथऊं। असांजे भाइरनि जी महिरबानी आहे। उन में बाल्टियूं आहिनि, बदना आहिनि। अलाह उन्हनि भाइरनि खे अञा गंज ॾींदो, असांजी ईअं मदद कंदा।
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Questions with me, Mohammed Shafiq. We're coming to you live from our studios here in Wakefield. Now, if you haven't seen the news, you wouldn't know that the United States have been having their midterm elections, which is the midpoint since 2020 presidential election. And it's literally elections that are happening across the United States, the Senate, the House of Representatives, governorships, local elections. And it's been an extraordinary night for anybody who's got an interest in politics and elections, and particularly what goes on in the United States. I'm a bit of a political junkie when it comes to American politics. And we're going to be talking very shortly to Nadia Ahmad, who's been a guest a number of occasions here on British Muslim TV. Really good to have her. But voters across the United States have been voting on Tuesday in the midterm elections, which happens every 2 years. All 435 seats in the House of Representatives and 35 of the 100 seats in the Senate have been contested. There are 39 state, territorial, governor elections, as well as numerous other state and local elections have been contested. It has been described by commentators as an important election that could affect life for ordinary Americans. The campaign has been dominated by the cost of living, immigration, crime, Ukraine, and it's often seen as a referendum on the 2 years the Democrats have controlled Congress and Joe Biden in the White House. With many Republican candidates subscribing to the view that Joe Biden did not win the election in 2022, which experts have said there is no evidence to hold this to be true. It is described by some as the big lie and others as the fairest election in many years. Now, the results are still coming in as we speak, but what we can tell, that red wave that often happens, so the president being Democrat, often happens the midterm, the opposition party, in this case the Republicans, have a massive swing towards them and they get many, many seats. And they win the control of the Congress, the Senate and the House of Representatives, and many governors and local seats. That hasn't happened. The Republicans are expected to take the House of Representatives, but not on the scale that was predicted. And in the Senate, it's neck and neck. At this point, it's neck and neck. And bit of history, 3 Palestinian Americans have now been elected to the office, along with another Muslim, Humma, who's also been re-elected in her Minnesota seat. So lots going on, and a sense of American politics and what is happening. So around 9 o'clock here in the UK, the results are, control of the Senate and the House of Representatives still hangs in a balance. And it's too early to call some of those seats, because what happens often, there's lots of postal voting that goes on. And to count that, to check it, to verify it, is taking a lot longer. And it's so much bigger in terms of the United States. Now, we're waiting to hear what is happening in Nevada, Arizona, and Georgia, which CNN, for example, have said is going to go to a runoff in 4 weeks' time. Now, what will this mean for American democracy? How will the 2024, this is what happens. The midterms finish, and next the conversation's all about the presidential elections, which will be in 2024, and they'll be here before you know it. Will President Joe Biden stand for re-election? And will Donald Trump try again to regain the White House? We expect an announcement from former President Donald Trump on Tuesday from Florida. Now, Professor Nadia Ahmad is an author, she's an attorney, a law professor and environmental justice advocate. She's an associate professor at Barry University School of Law, and she's based in Orlando in Florida. I'm pleased to say Professor Nadia Ahmad is joining us live from Orlando in Florida. Professor Nadia Ahmad, assalamu alaikum, warm welcome back to the program. Great to have you on.
Walaikum assalam. It's great to join you today.
Yeah, well, we were talking just during the break, and what's your reflections on the midterm election and the campaign and the aftermath?
Well, so I think there's a few different ways to look at this. One of the side of the Democrats and the Republicans in terms of this midterm election is essentially a pulse check for the president's agenda in terms of how much he has been able to accomplish or not be able to get through. And so we didn't see this red tsunami that we were expecting, but there were some states that, especially, for example, with Florida, that has a large red wave that has come forward. And on the other side of it, we also see a lot of Muslim candidates who were winning their election we have Munira Abdullahi, who won an election at the state legislature in Ohio. We also have Mana Abdi, who won an election in Maine. And there's also a number of other progressive candidates from the Muslim community who won, including Zainab Mohammed for the state Senate in Minnesota. We also have Nabila Islam, who won a state Senate seat in the state of Georgia, which has a contested Senate race. And also, I think it's important to see, even in states like Texas, as well as the wins that you mentioned in Minnesota, we also had Keith Ellison also come forward in his race.
Was that as Attorney General?
Yes. So for Minnesota, we had Keith Ellison win, and also Ilhan Omar.
Yeah, and we had Abdul Nasser Rashid, who's also been elected as a member of Congress, another Palestinian. Quite a historic moment, wouldn't you say? Palestinian Americans flying the flag. Zero only a few years ago before Rashid Tlaib was there. Now she's joined by another two.
Yeah, and so in the state of Illinois as well, I think that we're starting to see great developments that are happening, and I think these forward movements that are happening are showing the growing strength of Muslims in politics, as well as also seeing that issues that we bring forward relating to Islamophobia, as well as for the plight of Palestinians. These are issues that are at the forefront of our community, and it's important to highlight them and show that our candidates who are speaking up about these issues are able to also win on these issues.
Yeah, I mean, it's great because I tweeted Rua today and congratulated, and she followed me on Twitter, so I'm really excited that we've seen this progress. Now, you're from Florida. Governor Ron DeSantis was up for re-election. He had a massive landslide. He took lots of votes from the Latinos, lots of people across Florida. It's no longer a battleground state. It's a blue state now, isn't it?
Yeah, so I'd say that's fairly solidly red.
Sorry, red. Now here in the UK, Labour are red and Conservatives are blue, and it's opposite way around in America, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, no worries. And so what I think if you look at historical trends, it's possible that, I mean, it's not like it's all washed away for the Democrats in this, in Florida. For example, if you look at the 2004 and 2006 elections, which had gone in the way of Republicans in 2008, as well as in 2012, Florida voted for Senator Barack Obama and reelected him in 2012. So it's not as if it's all is lost. There's just a lot of work to do, and it may not happen right away. And I think that if we kind of move forward in this trajectory, we're going to see more movement that is happening. And I think some of the issues relating to inflation, as well as the economy, and high cost of living, as well as high cost of rent as well, has contributed to some of the backsliding within the Democratic Party. But you're also seeing a really strong progressive movement that is growing. I was really excited on election night that we had Maxwell Frost, who is a strong advocate for our community, as well, come forward and when he's going to be the first Gen Z member of Congress at the age of 25 years old, who will represent our state in Congress. And so these are the types of victories that we are seeing in coming forward. We also, for example, were able to pick up a seat in Pennsylvania. And so I think that these are showing trends that are moving forward in a positive direction. And also in seeing like the high number of Muslims that have won elected seats in Georgia show that there's a certain appetite for developing a broader coalition building. And when it's done correctly, it can have positive results. And it's moving away from the politics of Islamophobia that has really dominated mainstream U.S. politics for a number of years, even decades.
Yeah. I mean, is it beyond repair for the Democrats? Because I remember talking to you 2 years ago and Donald Trump winning Florida, and you weren't very optimistic. And last night just suggested that, you know, the Democrats have lost House seats in Florida as well after the redistribution. How hopeful are you that the Democrats can pull this round?
So I think historical trends show that it's likely that they will pull it off. It also depends who the Republican nominee will be in 2024. If you have a candidate like Donald Trump coming forward again, it's likely that the Democrats could remain in control. But if you have someone who's more or less considers himself a self-proclaimed maverick, like Ron DeSantis or some of the other some of the other Republican candidates, it may be more of a contest and things may be more up for grabs. But I think if you have Trump going forward, that's a positive development for the Democrats, because he's likely to be defeated in that sense.
Yeah, and for the progressive movement, who you seem to be more in touch with the Muslim community in America, is that the future? Is that where American Muslims should be putting their energy in, rather than the mainstream Democratic Party?
I think that the Democratic Party provides more of a base for us to develop and grow and bring forward on our issues. Some of the issues that have been important to the American Muslim community include issues of immigration, as well as issues relating to student debt relief and being able to do work relating to environmental protection and climate change. At the same time, our community is very diverse, so there has also been growth I've seen within the of Muslims in leadership within the Republican Party. And so I think that's a trend that's also going to continue to develop going forward, that there will be Muslims who are going to become active in both political parties as well as working independently with as independents. And so I think a lot of this is the remnants of the 2016 and the 2020 Bernie Sanders campaign that brought a lot of people who are not ordinarily involved in politics or maybe interested in it, but not getting to the level of being involved. And so I think that's really what's been a sea change. And I think that seeing the victories that we have at the state level is going to also drive more people, especially with the amount of young people that have won, is really going to be a driver for change.
Yeah, and we're going to reflect on the presidential election that's going to come. The campaign looks like it started today. The 2024 presidential election, what does that mean for Joe Biden? Will he actually stand for re-election? He's the oldest American president ever. He'll probably be in his late 80s by the time he finishes the second term, if he's elected. And what do you make of Donald Trump? Apparently, he's making an announcement on Tuesday. Is he standing? Is he? Anyway, Ruwa Roman and Abdul Nasser Rashid are the two new Palestinian Americans who've been elected. We'll continue to reflect on the midterm elections with our special guest, Professor Nadia Ahmad, who's joining us from Orlando in Florida. And we'll be back very, very shortly. Don't be going anywhere. Assalamu alaikum.
It was on my first trip to Pakistan when I was 12 that I saw kids my own age whose backs bowed under the weight of carrying water containers. It made me realize how fortunate I was. As I got older, I became more involved to improve the plight of orphans in my home village. Eventually in 2009, I founded the charity Penny Appeal. Teamwork really does make the dream work, because in a few years we became a British Muslim movement. Our donors saved lives, fed the homeless, built water wells, mosques, schools, hospitals. We innovated and took movies, comedy and music tours into our communities. By 2021, we impacted the lives of people across 56 countries and provided 49 million meals, alhamdulillah. It was the donors and the team that made Penny Appeal surpass all my expectations. But it wasn't without struggles, because I learned some lessons the hard way. So I hope you don't mind if I tell you the whole story of Penny Appeal. Small change, big difference.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ask on WhatsApp any questions, any recommendations, any advice. We sometimes fall into the trap of the devil of shaitan and unfortunately lose our way.
Welcome back to Questions with me, Mohammed Shafiq. My special guest this evening is Professor Nadia Ahmad, who is still with us live on British Muslim TV from Orlando in Florida in the United States. We want to open your, sorry, don't open your mouth. We want to open the lines and take some calls as well. So the lines are open 01924231083. And lots of questions coming, comments coming through on social media around the re-emergence. I don't know if you ever went away. Donald Trump has made this announcement that he will be making an announcement about an announcement. He'll be making an announcement that he's going to stand for the presidency again. And that's going to happen on Tuesday evening. So it'll be interesting to see what he says and what involvement it has. I mean, Nadia, just on that, how do you assess Donald Trump's involvement? Has he come out stronger after these midterms, or is he weaker?
I think it's a mixed bag. It's essentially a draw because some of the candidates that he endorsed won, others did not win, and they ended up actually losing some of their elections. So I think that like an endorsement from Donald Trump may or may not be a positive development, and some candidates as well as those who are already in office have been shying away from being associated with him, especially those who are in more middle of the ground states and have less divisive politics. And I think that when you're looking at another Donald Trump candidacy, that would be really welcomed by Democrats because they see him as an easy target. It's easy to show all of the shenanigans that he has pulled, going back to the January 6th storming of the Capitol and the violence that ensued as a result of that. And people have really lost their patience with that, even within the party. And so this far right fascism that is brought forward by Republicans isn't going away. And also there has been some mixed results as well from the Supreme Court and the backsliding that has also occurred on that front. So that may also be an encouragement to drive more people to the polls. And we expect the economy to improve over the next couple of years. And so that should be less of an issue. But what I do see emerging more of as an issue is climate change. And so whether we're looking at the flooding that is happening in Pakistan, where over a third of the country was underwater, even in my home state of Florida, where we just underwent a massive hurricane with Hurricane Ian, which caused over $40 billion in damage, and we're facing another Category 1 storm. And so all of these issues are really coming into play.
I'm just looking at the news screens here in the studio. President Biden is speaking at the White House in response to the midterm elections. He's talking about the American people having spoken, talking about freedom, the student debt, talking about abortion, and all the issues which he campaigned on. It looks like a victory lap because he didn't get decimated, as the pundits were saying. And that's President Joe Biden at the White House speaking at this moment. And then before, you were talking about the 2024 presidential election. How do you feel about Donald Trump standing again? We get the announcement on Tuesday.
I'd say he'd be an easier opponent than some of the other candidates going forward, just because there's just like so much. He's like a wild card, even though he has served a term in the White House, and so I think that would be a welcome development. Even a lot of the polls that have been taken by 538 and other pollsters are showing that in a matchup between not only Joe Biden, but Kamala Harris, or even other possible Democratic candidates, Donald Trump does very poorly. And so we would welcome a Donald Trump as a candidate, but at the same time, he is an exceedingly divisive figure, and he's really been a threat to democracy. And seeing, what happened on January 6th and seeing it, the remnants of it, it's just a lot of concerns about the safety of democracy. And a lot of what I remember looking at with the January 6th storming of the Capitol was something that would not be expected in the United States. And so it shows you how the democratic apparatus, even within the United States, is is on a really thin rail.
Yeah. And then when you look at the Democratic Party, I was incorrect at the top of the program. I said he was going to be his late 80s. Actually, he's going to be, if he decides to stand, he'll be 86 and not at the end of the late 80s. But how do you think Joe Biden is the safest option for the Democrats in 2024?
He's the reliable option at this point, but I think it's really too early to state what the Democratic field would look like going into 2024. At this point, they're still deciding where they're going to even be holding their convention, and they're deciding between Houston, Atlanta, Chicago, and New York for the 2024 convention. And I think there's a lot that needs to be sorted out at this point. The party is bringing forward, Joe Biden to continue as a candidate. That may change. And I think that whatever happens, the Democrats should be in a strong place going into 2024. But there has to be more work that they are going to do relating to the voter outreach, the successes that they're able to achieve. And in some states, for example, like Pennsylvania, they need to build upon that. And I think that there's also these concerns about the Islamophobic foreign policies that are also going forward. Just the other day, Afghanistan, the president called a godforsaken place, and then Pakistan was called one of the most dangerous countries. And there's also comments made about Saudi Arabia, and so I think there needs to be a little bit more tact that is paid, and there needs to be more efforts that are related to efforts given towards diplomatic solutions. And so a lot of this continued drive to war, whether it's against Iran or China and even Russia, I think that needs to be there needs to be some pushback and downgrading on that.
And what do you make of the role of American Muslims, not just in this election, but looking forward to 2024? Do you think Muslims will be playing a more active role in that election?
Yeah, I think this election, even though it was somewhat of a blip for Democrats, they weren't able to gain more seats in the House and lost control. But I do see that as a positive development for American Muslims, not only those who are serving as elected officials, but also even at the local levels as well. And I think that there should be more engagement that happens, whether within county and municipal level elections, and we're still growing our bench as well.
And how do you see the real divide in American politics in the weeks to come?
So I think the economy will continue to play an important role, as it has not only in the U.S. but globally, even in the United Kingdom. We've seen how important the economy is as an issue. But some of these core issues of democracy are still at the heart and drive elections. There's this sense that a lot of concerns happen around gun control or women's rights, and so how these issues are framed are also going to become more important to how they're developed.
Yeah, I mean, that quote directly from President Biden, who's speaking at the White House, exact quote says, "Democracy's been tested in recent years, but with their votes, the American people have spoken." What would you say to that?
Yeah, and I think that's a fair statement. When Ron DeSantis gave his victory speech yesterday in Tampa, Florida, he said that Florida is really the protector of the country, and so really as a contrast to that. And one of the things that he said that really stuck with me is that he said, Florida is where woke goes to die. And the idea of that, there's an idea of wokeness and even being able to teach history properly and the role of slavery and colonialism within broader world history is important. And I think that's really where we see some trouble occurring is in the educational system in the United States is really not on par with its overall GDP compared to other countries, which within the broader OECD mix. And so that's, I think, what it needs to be the focus on in terms of spending that happens, that we're spending money for education and healthcare, as well as being able to work towards protecting the environment, that we're not actually going out and spending more money for war and incarceration.
Well, thank you. I know you've been very busy, and so thank you so much for your time. It's always great to see you, and much love to you and the family. Keep safe.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Always. Professor Nadia Ahmad joining us live from Orlando in Florida. Former President Donald Trump has also been posting on his own social media platform. He says, while in certain ways yesterday's election was somewhat disappointing, from my personal standpoint, it was a very big victory. 219 wins and 16 losses in a general. Who has ever done better than that? And certainly not. I don't think any of the broadcasters have been able to independently verify the numbers. But yeah, there are some places like Pennsylvania, the first potential Muslim member of the Senate, Dr. Mohammed, Oz, I think his name is. He lost his seat to John Fetterman. So yeah, it's a mixed bag for America. And as we head into that campaign over the next 2 years, we'll aim to bring the flavour of the campaign. We did this 2 years ago, didn't we, with the 2020 election? And do you remember how great that was? It's going to be, if it's Joe Biden and Donald Trump Mark II, it's going to be interesting over the next 2 years. Because President Biden has not decided if he wants to stand. And then you've got the Donald Trump announcement. He says he's going to make an announcement on Tuesday. There's rules and regulations in place around funding and expenses and stuff like that. So once they declare their candidacy, then the law and checks and balances comes into place. And that's why he's been reluctant to speak before that. But we expect him to do that. And President Biden in the White House talking about, American democracy being challenged these past 2 years, and the American people have spoken. So his party didn't get a battering. That is what many people expected him to get. That's what we have done for American politics. I'm sure we'll come back to that in weeks to come, but we'll take a break. When we come back, we're going to head to Peterborough and talk to the entrepreneur, Hamza Malik, about his journey in business and how he is changing lives in his new role. Join us on the other side of these very important messages. Assalamu alaikum.
Are you suffering from hair thinning or hair loss? Luxuriance hair growth products use the highest quality natural ingredients and proven formulas for hair regrowth. Don't believe us? Then look at these results.
Been using the hair serum and shampoo for about 3 months. My hair's got a lot thicker. Really recommend it.
Get 10% off today using code BMTV.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Single Muslim Live here on British Muslim TV.
Before you get into that relationship, you need to be completely content with yourself.
Areas in our lives that need adjusting, and that adjusting leads to healing.
You using your emotional intelligence to understand other people.
These are really tough topics, but really needed to be spoken about.
Looking for the perfect place to host your next event? Gifto's Lahore Karai Banquet is here to make your event mesmerizing for you and for your guests. Catering for up to 180 people with extravagant ambience for all kinds of events like birthdays, weddings, henna, family function or anniversaries. Indulge your taste buds with authentic and freshly prepared Pakistani cuisine on site and delight your guests with elegance. For booking, contact Gifto's Lahore Karai.
Over 100 years of expertise. Here at Kingswell Watts Solicitors, we cover a range of legal services including immigration law, family law, and much more. Get in touch on 01924 461 236 or alternatively email us at inquiries@kingswellwatts.co.uk.
Assalamu alaikum, welcome back to Questions with me, Mohammed Shafiq. We're coming to you live from our studios here in Blackburn. I was going to say Blackburn, but no, it's not Blackburn. It's the slip of the tongue. It's actually Wakefield. We're in Yorkshire. We've got a visa. They allow me to come from Lancashire into Yorkshire once a week on a Wednesday evening, and I need to be back in Lancashire by midnight. Anyway, we're going to move on to our final guest and topic. My special guest for this final part is a really powerful story. Having positive role models for British Muslims is something I've always believed in, and I always believe it's very important for our young people and upcoming generations. There is so much success in every industry that makes you proud of our British Muslim community. And as it's Islamophobia Awareness Month, it's also an opportunity for us to celebrate those that are making a lasting contribution in our country and in our communities. One such person who is a positive role model for those that want to be successful in business and then still contribute to the community is Hamza Malik. He's an entrepreneur based in the UK, and he's got a powerful story to tell, and you'll be hearing that very, very shortly. Hamza Malik is joining us live on British Muslim TV from Peterborough. Hamza, assalamu alaikum, and a very warm welcome to the program. Great to have this conversation.
Walaikum assalam. Yeah, likewise. I'm excited to have a chat.
Okay, so be gentle, yeah? So in university, you launched a CV writing business, and you, in the process of this, won the Enterprising Student of the Year. Tell us all about this.
Yeah, so I was in uni. This was just as the recession was sort of in full swing, and I read an article that said, obviously, job losses are, at an all-time high. I was doing an English degree at the University of Leicester, so I sort of muddled through, made my own website and started writing people's CVs because I thought, one of the main reasons people weren't getting jobs was because the market was terrible. But then a lot of people, when I saw their CVs, they're like spelling mistakes and, they were showing when they were working 15 years old in the corner shop, and these guys are like applying for law firms and stuff. So it's like, you don't need everything there. So I made this website, started doing people's CVs, and they started getting jobs at big companies like Sony and Apple and Accenture. So after a while, it kind of grew organically, ended up ranking on Google for some high quality keywords, and essentially ended up doing that nearly full time. I was at uni and I was also growing the business to a point where there were some pretty sort of highly professional individuals from around the world who were sort of director level and even CEO level wanting me to create their CVs essentially. And I kind of grew that. I spoke to uni because they were saying, you're kind of spotty in lectures, you come, sometimes you don't come. And I said, I'm just growing my business. And they were really supportive. And after a vigorous process, they said that, we'd love to give you an award for your efforts at launching a business and helping people at the same time.
Yeah. And when, some people like, Boris Johnson said he wanted to be the king of the world. He kind of, politicians have this path that they want to follow. And these are the steps to become prime minister or whatever. Did you always know what you wanted to do when you went to university?
Yeah, I mean, I always wanted to run my own business. I was always interested in writing and, creating businesses. And I was always doing things in school as well. I was sort of, importing headphones from China and selling them to my friends and, websites for local businesses and stuff. But I was just really excited about the fact that you can have an idea, create something, grow it, explain it to other people. And the best part is that unlike in politics, where there's loads of muddled factors that sort of make the truth more difficult to get. In business, it's clear. If the market likes your idea, they will go for it and they will buy it. And if they do not like your idea, they will tell you, and that there's no spared feelings, which I like. It's quite refreshing to have that perspective and kind of create something. It helps people, it grows, and then you can kind of scale it at your own sort of time as well to kind of grow it into something even more. So
you graduated from university. Where did you get your first opportunity in terms of career?
Well, I was a Saturday boy in John Lewis whilst I was at uni. So every Saturday I used to go back to Peterborough. I loved it because you can kind of, again, it's the general public, right? So it's wild cards all the time. You don't know who you're going to talk to. You don't know what they're like. You have to help them. And it's TVs and laptops. And I'm a massive tech nerd as well. So I really enjoyed it. And my manager said, you should really look to apply for the graduate scheme because they're looking for people that are interested in tech. So I applied and prayed as well. And alhamdulillah, I was lucky enough to get it. And I worked there for a few years in London, in Victoria.
Yeah. And how was that opportunity for you?
It was really interesting because you kind of find out, one of the largest retailers in the UK and essentially the crown jewel of the British High Street, you find out how their website works and how they make decisions and how their teams are put together and just the processes of how such a massive operation runs. And there were people there that taught me a lot. And, I sort of honed my communication skills and just learned the little things about how to present yourself. It was really interesting. And at the same time, I thought, why aren't we moving faster? Why can't we just make decisions on the spot? And they had to explain, look, we're a massive company. There's X, Y, and Z procedures to go through. And that's when I kind of realized that I didn't want to work for a corporate purely because I'm quite impatient and restless and I like to make decisions quite quickly.
And so that static sort of bureaucracy that exists within not just the public sector, but also within the private sector, that put you off?
Yeah, it did. To be fair, they do very well and they're a very successful company. But I think there are other companies that move in a lot more of an agile manner in different industries, to be honest, that I was more attracted towards. So I thought, if I really want to move at a point where you're moving quickly and you're being more agile, and to be fair, the cost of that is that it's on you. So when I make a business decision now, it's not like there isn't a lot of bureaucracy in the business. However, if the decision isn't the right one, you don't have a massive steering group or a committee or a forum to lean back on. You have to fix it immediately. So there is an element of you're on the edge and you have to make the right decision and move quickly. But I kind of enjoy that. And that's kind of in my general life as well. I much prefer sprinting rather than long distance, and I prefer intense sports rather than sort of golf and stuff. So I think it's your character that kind of comes out as well in business.
Are you less of a reflector?
Less of a reflector. Yeah. I guess I'd like to reflect at key junctures. So I try and do a self-reflection thing at the end of every day to be right, what went right, what went wrong, and most importantly, did I say anything to someone that could have been misconstrued? Did I hurt anyone's feelings? And I know in business, this is whole image of, be ruthless and say it as it is and, fire people. I don't believe in that. I think that's completely wrong. I think that you have to be direct and aggressive, which is absolutely fine, but you can do it with an element of cordiality and you can be humble and polite as well. So if I do ever do something, and even if I speak to someone, a supplier, a little bit harshly, I do try and call them back and say, look, I was stressed. And to be fair, this is why we have a pretty good reputation now, because it's very important how you treat people as a direct reflection, not only of your business, but of your own character as well. So it's important to protect that.
And then how important was your faith, Islam, to your life and the work that you do?
It's everything, essentially. I don't think I'd actually be here if I didn't have the Islamic principles guiding me when I was growing my business, because as you grow, you kind of fall into these little pockets of the internet where there's gurus and influencers and everyone's saying, growth at all costs and hustle 24/7. And it's very easy to get sucked into that vortex. Islam encourages balance, the middle path. And it also encourages not to grow for growth's sake. So, you've got this sort of wildly capitalistic view of, okay, we're going to grow, we've reached this, now grow again, grow again, grow again. And we're seeing it now with pretty much every major tech company doing layoffs. Obviously, the recession and the economy is a massive part to play in that. But a lot of them grew too quickly because they were just really impressed at themselves and they wanted to, gain further profitability. But Islamically, it's tempered me a lot. And it's how I treat people, how I liaise with clients, how I talk to my team. And in terms of growth as well, you know, it's important to be incredibly grateful for every single opportunity that you get. And I feel putting that sort of, you know, being that grateful and pushing that out there really creates a positive ripple, to be honest. And again, like, there are some things that I just don't, like, we've had a lot of people come to us and say, you know, we'll pay you 6 figures, make this gambling website and do this and that. And we've just said, we're not interested. We can't do that. And I am 100% certain that has protected me from all sorts of problems and issues.
Yeah. And you know, you're still relatively young, if I may say so. You just look through the future generation and the younger kids coming up now as being a really good positive role model.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm really excited about the younger generation. I just spoke to a guy who wanted some business advice a few days ago, and I was like, I'm thrilled at like how excited they are and how they've all got their smartphones and they all know exactly how social media works and what to do and what not to do. Because when I grew up, I was like, you know, maybe 16, 17 when I made Facebook. And then, you know, by the time TikTok comes out, like, I just don't have the bandwidth to explore these platforms. And this is why I have people around me that help me out with this stuff. But I think it's really interesting because two things have happened at once. You've had the gatekeepers of growth, which was essentially like, used to be websites that you had to advertise on and magazines back in the day that you had to have a relationship with the editor. Like, that's largely gone. And if you want to start a business, like we even did an experiment where we said, can we start a business in 1 week? And with a budget of like a couple £100, the answer is yes, because you've got Facebook ads and you've got Google ads and you've got your different domain brokerages that are pretty cheap now as well. And largely, like, social media, even organically, is one of the most effective tools when used properly, because you can waste a lot of time on social media because it's designed to waste your time because advertisers want you to be on there. But if you use it to your benefit and leverage that technology, the results are pretty mind-boggling. Yeah, and when you look at the corporate sphere, you just kind of decided that wasn't for you, but you did taste it. You had to go through that journey for you to appreciate where you wanted to go. Am I correct in that? Yeah, absolutely. I think it was like I was like in a meeting or something, and someone like made a suggestion or something, and I kind of said, well, you know, why don't we just like do it this way? It's a lot faster. And everyone said, no, you know, there's a process, there's bureaucracy. And I said, well, when's the soonest we can do this thing? And they said, it's next year. And I was like, to me, as a like 21-year-old, next year was like a million years away. I was like, we're in like June next year, like the whole world's changed. And every single day is like, you know, to be fair, it was such a great environment because I was learning so much. It was an amazing sandbox. And they were very patient and kind of explained everything. But I was really honest with them very early on. And I said, look, I would much prefer the volatility of launching your own business, because then you don't really have anything to kind of like cloak your mistakes. You kind of just have to own them up and kind of just move forward and grow. Yeah, well, I know you're going to stay with us. We're going to take our final break. And when we come back, we'll continue the important conversation with Hamza Malik, who's joining us, the Muslim entrepreneur from Peterborough, sharing his journey and his story. And we hope that will inspire you at home. Your children, if you're young, you're watching this and you're thinking, you know, what do I want to do with my life? Well, take that as an example. Hamza Malik giving all of us some really good advice. Right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll continue that conversation, but also we'll take some of your comments as well on the issues we've been covering in tonight's program. Let's take that final break. I promise you it won't be very long, very short, but we'll be back very shortly. Join us on the other side of this.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Single Muslim Live here on British Muslim TV.
Before you get into that relationship, you need to be completely content with yourself.
Areas in our lives that need adjusting, and that adjusting leads to healing.
You using your emotional intelligence to understand other people.
These are really tough topics, but really needed to be spoken about.
When I joined SingleMuslim.com,
I honestly wouldn't have dreamt that I would meet someone that I would marry and fall in love with.
With my free membership, I was able to browse through thousands of single Muslim women in my area and read their profiles.
So thank you, SingleMuslim.com, for helping me complete my faith.
Alhamdulillah, I found the one.
Thank you so much, SingleMuslim.com, for making this happen.
मुझो नालो आ सकीना लिहाज़ गोठ में रहता हूँ बरसात बहुत ज़्यादा पई घर बुढ़ी या बच्चा वठी भगा से सिर्फ बच्चा भगा से कुछ न बचो जायूं किरी पियूं कचूं हूँ पेट ढवलाए था सिकऊं मानी कॾहिं अचे थी कॾहिं नथी अचे कॾहिं खाइनि था बच्चा कॾहिं नथा खाइनि लटनि बिना खणी भॻाऊं पहिरियों उखाड़ा आहिनि बच्चा बसि तर तबाह थियो आहे खटां बि कान्हनि कुझु बि कान्हे बेवाया थीने लिखता आहियूं घर खां असांखे इदारे वारनि दाल ॾिनी चांवर ॾिनऊं गिहु ॾिनऊं खंडु चांहि ॾिनऊं साबुण तेल ॾिना अथऊं पेस्टियूं ॾिनियूं अथऊं बचड़नि जा तोलिया ॾिना अथऊं जेके तड़क कराए असां साफ़ करे विहायूं बच्चा असांखे हर चीज़ इदारे वारनि ॾिनी आहे अलाह साईं उन्हनि खे वधाईंदो गिह ॾिना अथऊं हर चीज़ ॾिनी अथऊं असांखे
Assalamu alaikum, welcome back to questions. I promised you it was going to be quick. I'm Mohammed Shafiq. It's questions. My special guest this evening is Hamza Malik, who's still with us live here on British Muslim TV from Peterborough. Now, Hamza, you describe yourself as a Muslim entrepreneur. What is a Muslim entrepreneur?
I think it's kind of like entrepreneurship, like I spoke about earlier, it is a really wide topic, and a lot of it is about growth at all costs and, you know, hustle 24/7 and sort of sleep on the floor and don't see family. Muslim entrepreneur is essentially blending Islam with entrepreneurship and trying to do business in the way of sort of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Basically, the principles that were adopted by the best man in the world, by the best man ever created, can we adopt that in the everyday practices? And some of it is really direct and straightforward, you know, treat people with respect, pay them on time, don't engage in illicit activity. But then on a deeper level, you know, if you are going to grow at all costs, you end up basically being consumed by the business. And again, being a Muslim entrepreneur, you can't do that because, for example, you know, you've got your prayer times and you have to split time with family because obviously, you know, it's something that is massively important in Islam. So it's kind of like taking the best of entrepreneurship, but making sure that Islam is always the foundation, and anything that we do has an Islamic root.
Yeah, and I mean, in a sense, if you look at Islamic history and you look at Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was the first. He was an entrepreneur. He was a businessman, wasn't he? He grew as a Khadija's business massively.
Massively, and to be fair, like even nowadays, it's strange to meet people when they say, you know, we like working with you because like you're honest. And this is one of the key reasons that, you know, the business that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sort of, you know, looking after and growing grew so rapidly, right? Because he was such a direct, honest and straightforward person. That's kind of, it's not lost nowadays, but it's been diluted. And people almost assume that you'll just take a shortcut or you'll just say something to kind of, you know, make the sale. And we've actually, you know, I'm happy to talk myself out of a sale if it means telling the truth. So, you know, they might say, you know, have you got experience in X, Y, and Z? And I'll say, look, we've done 1 or 2 projects there, but we're probably not the best bet here, so you should go to somewhere else. They'll come back and say, we kind of want to work with you because everyone else says they're experts and gurus, and at least you're honest. So in that sense, it's hopefully something that we can see more of, you know, moving ahead.
Yeah, inshallah. And you've worked with many Muslim charities. What sort of things do you do for them?
Yeah, so, you know, we make their websites, paid social, we get them to the top of Google as well, their digital strategies, we make apps for them. We made an app called Deen Dash this Ramadan, which alhamdulillah did quite well, reached nearly 100,000 users. And that basically when kids played the game, they raised money for charity at the same time, which was quite cool. But yeah, it's essentially helping them traverse the digital terrain and be top of their game. Because in this sense, it's super important that when you're using donor money, it's, you know, the amanat and the trust there is absolutely paramount. So my job is to say, look, you know, how can we get you the best return on investment for whatever you're putting in? You know, is it 6, 7, 10, 11 times return on investment? And how do we increase that whilst growing the charity and the awareness of it as well?
Yeah. And you also created the app called Dua Compass. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, Dua Compass was an app several years ago now where I was kind of looking for a dua for a specific emotion. I think I was like angry or something, and like was all agitated, and I was kind of like looking for something and I couldn't find it. And, you know, I just sort of started the business, and we had a developer in Bangladesh as well. So we made an app where you've got a bunch of emojis, because everyone uses emojis and they're universal. And you basically drag the emoji into a circle and it gives you a dua based upon that emoji. So you might get the angry emoji and you drag it in and it gives you the dua you should recite when you're angry. Same with happy, sad, tired, frustrated, excited, all of that. And we basically upgraded that and had sort of new duas come in. And then we had a requested dua feature where we could get people to request things that they wanted in the app. And I didn't think it would be a massively popular feature, but we had thousands and thousands of messages a week coming in when we launched the app, where people wanted to sort of, you know, have someone, do a dua for them. And we ended up topping the App Store in Singapore and Malaysia and Indonesia. We were number one, and it was kind of like us and all the major social media networks and, you know, Uber and all these guys. And in the UK, I think we hit like the top 20 because it's quite competitive. But the aim there was essentially to firstly learn, how do we release an app on a shoestring budget? And secondly, let's do something that actually helps people. And it's great because now, you know, even to this day, we get people messaging us saying, thank you, I was in the hospital praying for my father and I found your app, downloaded it, and now I know exactly the duas to recite, and you can share the duas and you can like the duas and stuff. So the idea is actually just to spread positivity and help people find the right dua for the current emotion they're feeling.
And do you get a sense when you talk to those charities and Muslim organizations, the mosques, the institutions within the Muslim community, that we haven't really sussed out social media as a tool for our community?
Yeah, no, 100%. And to be fair, like, it's not just like the Muslim charities. Like, you know, we've consulted with all sorts of charities, and, you know, I've spoken to a Christian charity, and to be fair, like even brands, you know, restaurants and travel companies and all sorts. No one's really sussed it out. The only ones that have sussed it out are the ones that are so large. They have like 30 people whose job is to suss it out, like insight managers and researchers and stuff. But everyone else is very much trying to keep up with everything, trying to predict which way the landscape is going to move. Our job is to say, look, we don't know either. Like, no one knows what's going to happen, but we're going to prepare you in a way that means that whichever way it moves, you'll always win. And to be fair, with charities, the biggest win we found was, you know, the amount of data and obviously GDPR compliant data that they held meant that a lot of these charities were kind of doing campaigns and trying to find new people. And we said, no, hang on, you've got like 50,000 people that kind of just fell off the bandwagon and haven't really communicated with you for a long time. Why don't you just like reactivate that audience, talk to them, tell them what you've been up to. And that way, you know, you have to spend pennies to talk to them rather than, you know, pounds to talk to someone that has never heard of you before at all. And that's essentially, we found these sort of pockets of growth for each charity. And that's how we grew them digitally to figures that were, you know, basically record breaking for them since their inception.
Where do you think that development? What's the next? I know Facebook and Meta are thinking about the virtual world. Is there a Muslim virtual world that could exist?
I don't know, to be honest. I think it'd be interesting. Because...
Sorry, it's just one of those questions I've always wanted to ask, and you've got a tech person on mine, not ask him.
No, it's a cool question because, like, with VR, I think at the moment, VR is where the internet was in like 1999, where everyone's really excited about it. There's no real hardware that does what we need to do yet. And everyone's kind of like, that'd be cool, but what's the use case? And back in the day, people said, why on earth am I going to shop on the internet? I want to kind of, you know, touch and feel what I'm buying. And nowadays, everyone just sort of, you know, buys everything on major online retailers. So in terms of like a Muslim element of it, there definitely is. There are apps where, you know, you can like in VR go and not perform, but just like observe Umrah, and like you can kind of walk through a doorway and have a look around, and suddenly you can press a button and you're in Masjid al-Haram. And, you know, that's quite cool because it kind of like gives people a sneak peek into what the atmosphere is like. And obviously then there's a further journey where you can actually go and book it and do it for real to make it valid. But I think that it's really going to begin with a layer of Muslim entrepreneurs. And I say Muslim entrepreneurs because if you're going to make something for the Muslim market, like 9 times out of 10, you kind of have to know the market by being in it and being a Muslim entrepreneur. There'll be, you know, dozens and dozens of very talented, passionate entrepreneurs that are going to create the first wave of apps and VR experiences. And then on top of that is what we're going to build into, as you described, some sort of, you know, VR world, which would be quite cool. You know, I don't think it's there yet. I think we need to give it sort of, you know, 5 to 7 years to kind of really settle down. And, you know, I don't know, I know a dozen people maybe that have the headset So until people are happy having that big headset on their head, we're not going to really move anywhere quickly.
We're not, are we? I just find it unbelievable. I just think, why would you spend so much money to create these sort of virtual reality and not live in the real world? Anyway, it's just one of my bugbears. Tell us, what's the future hold? What other things can we expect from you?
So, I mean, at the moment, we're pretty busy sort of growing Regent Branding, which is the name of my business, in terms of working with other charities, moving into new sectors. Deen-2 is coming out, so that's going to be, inshallah, ready for next Ramadan. And that's kind of going to be kind of on par with other largely popular games like Subway Surfer that we can kind of compete with. We have a few internal app projects that are doing quite well. So one of them is Drench, which is kind of going to help restaurants boost footfall on their terms, it's been really interesting in the last few years seeing that grow. And then, in my spare time, I really want to focus more on writing, because I'm a fantasy author, and I published my first novel a few years ago, Arius Archer and the Shadow Cloak. And I've been saying for ages that, oh yeah, there's a sequel coming. And now people are actually asking, like, where is it? Like, I want to read it. And I haven't finished it yet. So I need to finish that and hopefully kind of like deliver on the promise. And I told everyone there'd be 10 books, even though like I hadn't planned 10 books, but there's going to be 10 books that I kind of need to churn out in the next sort of 5 to 10 years. And that's kind of like a more sort of leisurely side of things. That's sort of less business and more, personal interest.
Do you ever relax? Switch off?
Yeah, not all the time, yeah.
Because that was one of the things somebody said to me, I'd really love to do my own business, but I know it'll be 24/7. And when I work for somebody, I just go and do the job and leave.
Yeah, it's a good point. At the beginning, your business does consume you 24/7, and you're everything, right? You're like your accounts, your marketing, your sales, your branding, your admin, you're the whole lot. But as you grow, if you set it up correctly, there should be people that these inquiries go to. You should have processes and you should have opening and closing times. Like I always say, like, if someone tries to get in touch with us at like 11 p.m., we have a process for it, but I always say, like, if you try to like knock on like John Lewis or the Apple store at 11 p.m., like, would you expect someone to kind of like rub their eyes and come to the door and open it? Like, no, it's closed. You need to come back when it's open. So these professional boundaries are really important. And also, if the business is damaging your mental health and your physical health, then you're not, it's not fulfilling its purpose, which is essentially to enrich your life and rejuvenate you and give you a passion to really, really pursue. If it's hurting you, then maybe it's the wrong business, or maybe it needs to be scaled back to a way that allows you to grow.
And you know what? I could sit here all night and listen to you. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed you being my guest tonight.
No, you're most welcome. Thanks for your time.
Hamza Malik there, sharing his personal story and wishing you the best for the future as well. MashaAllah, what a powerful story. If you want to get in business, that's the name to check out, Hamza Malik. He's on Twitter, Hamza Malik 91. Right, he was joining us live from Peterborough, which means we've reached the end of another program. Firstly, I want to thank our special guest tonight, Humma Nizami from the Race Equality Network in Bradford. Nadia Ahmad joining us from Orlando in Florida. She was reflecting on the midterm elections. And then just a few moments ago, we heard from Hamza Malik, the Muslim entrepreneur. We'll be back again very soon with another edition of Questions, with live stories from those making a difference to communities around the world. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great weekend when it comes. Thank you to the team behind the scenes here in the studios in Wakefield. From me, Mohammed, Shafiq, and the whole team here at Brit Muslim TV, thank you for joining us. Take care of yourself. Assalamu alaikum.